and leave them until they're cold. And then you've got these. But anyway, it's a bit cool cooking. Yeah. Cooking is all about how it tastes, how it feels, how it smells. So just give this a stir until it's all melted. Keep stirring so it doesn't catch the bottom of. If the mixture comes straight off the bowl, then you've creamed it sufficiently. If it doesn't, stir it. Just like that. Perfect. Hello, I'm Beverley-glock, and today I'm going to make pear and frangipane tart. Now this reminds me of holidays in France when you'd go into a bakery and you'd find either those gorgeous apple tarts or a pear and frangipane tart. This recipe is a really nice one to make in the summer to share with friends. And to start off with, I'm going to make the sweet shortcrust pastry. Now there's a couple of cheats for this recipe. First of all, if you really can't be doing with making the pastry, then you can buy a rich sweet shortcrust pastry from the supermarket. Make sure it's all butter. Also, if you haven't got time to cook down the pears, or you can't get hold of ripe pears and you're really running short of time, then you can buy tinned. You've got to make the frangipane. You can't get away from not making the frangipane. Now, the pastry is a sweet shortcrust. So it's more like a biscuit recipe, and you can do this just with a bowl if you don't have a mixer or you don't have a food processor, but I'm going to do it the easy way. 225 grams of plain flour and 125 grams of unsalted butter. When you're making pastry, always use unsalted butter. Even if your recipe asks you to add a pinch of salt afterwards, use unsalted. The reason for this is because unsalted butter has got lower water content. With salted butter, it tends to have extra water content in there with the addition of the salt. You don't want extra water in your pastry, or you're going to get a soggy pastry. So unsalted butter chopped into cubes. Now again, keep this really cold, straight out the fridge. Doing this at home, then we use the rubbing in method, which means you toss the butter in the flour, you put your hands in and you rub it in through your fingers. The trick is to have dirty fingers and clean palms. Great thing to get the children to do, but we're going to cheat. So easy. So you want your mixture to look a little like breadcrumbs, but because it's a high fat content, it may go a little lumpy. Don't worry about that. If it goes lumpy, absolutely fine. And into that mix, we're going to add 125 grams of caster sugar, because it's a sweet shortcrust pastry, and around about 1 egg. Now I say around about. If you've got a large egg, it might be a wee bit too big. So the trick is to add in about half of it and then just see how it goes. Now that is a little bit dry, so I'm going to add a wee bit more egg in there. So it should come together to form a ball of dough. If it is a little bit sticky, then don't worry, just to add a tiny bit more flour to it. And then this, pull together, and then that can go in a freezer bag into the fridge for an hour just to chill off and give it time to rest. So to prepare the rest of the pear tart, if you've got really hard pears, then peel them, quarter them, pop them in a pan of water with either the seeds of 1 vanilla pod or a teaspoonful of vanilla paste and a cinnamon stick, and 200 grams of sugar, and just bring that to the boil and simmer it very gently, making sure that the pears are kept under the water. If they keep popping up, then pop a saucer in the water with a weight on it just to keep them under, and simmer them for anything between 5 minutes and half an hour, depending on how hard they are, until they are soft enough just for a knife gently pressed into it to have a little tiny bit of give. If you've got very ripe pears like these are, then you don't need to do that. And if you're using tinned, you don't need to use those either. And then to make the frangipane, I've got 100 grams of soft butter. This is salted butter, you don't need to, unsalted, salted, whatever. And this needs to be out of the fridge for a couple of hours to actually soften up, because you're not going to be able to get this creamed if you've got hard butter straight out of the fridge. 100 grams of sugar, And we're just going to cream that the old-fashioned way. If you've got a mixer, pop it in the mixer. When the mix just creams, you'll feel the difference. You'll feel it give slightly and soften up under your spoon. And the best way to figure out if it's actually ready is take a spoonful of it, tap it on the side of the bowl. If it comes straight off, it's ready. And to this, we're going to add 100 grams of ground almonds. This mix is obviously not suitable for anybody who has an almond allergy or a nut allergy. And then either 2 large or 3 medium eggs. And finally, a few drops of almond extract, just to give it an extra bit of warmth in the almond flavouring. My pastry's been chilling off in the fridge and it's now firmed up. Now the great thing with this is that you're not going to have to roll the pastry out, which means adding more flour. This is a really fab cheats recipe. If you think about it, when you've got your tart, it's only the very edge of the pastry that people are going to see. So grease your tart tin really well and then start off with a little bit of pastry and just squish it in. No rolling. If it sticks to your fingers, then dunk your fingers in a wee bit of flour. But you don't want to add too much. And just push this in and use your hand to just push it up the sides. So this really is a completely stress-free flan. If you happen to make a tear in it, or you make a hole, that's fine. Just fill it back in again. If you need to add a wee bit more pastry to patch it, then just add a wee bit more pastry. Nobody's going to see it. That's at the bottom. And the other thing is, you don't want your flan to look too professional, because otherwise your friends are all going to think you bought it. You've got fingerprints in there. That's the bottom of the flan. Nobody's going to see it. So these pears haven't been cooked because they are so ripe. So each quarter I'm going to do is, using the narrow end, just make about 4 cups, maybe 5, depending on how thick they are, leaving the top intact. And then just spreading those out. That one's broken, don't matter if it breaks. So cinnamon going on. So this will go in the oven for around 15 to 20 minutes. On your hot baking tray, check the frangipane should be cooked through and it will rise around the pears, and your pastry should be this gorgeous golden brown colour.